Hey everyone, how are you doing? Good day to you. This is Roger, of course, and I hope you're having a great holiday weekend. It's about a week till Christmas. Very exciting. So I hope everyone's just doing great, and I hope you're enjoying the series. We're about to get into the monster phase, which of course is the last phase of a turn, and then we go back to the top for turn two and do it all over again. But it's going to get very exciting. So welcome. I hope everyone's doing great. I want to go over a few things and a clarification that Jason pointed out. But I wanted to say I hope that you enjoyed that intermission video. As you saw, there was a lot of information I wanted to get out for you. So I hope that you enjoyed all that and my little take on rolling dice and what dice mean to me and building up a hero. So I just wanted to touch base with you on that, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Okay, before we get into the monster phase, Jason, the very awesome Jason, we're good friends on Facebook and we talk here. Him and his daughter played Dungeon Crusade, the Avalon adventure board game. Jason, you're awesome. He pointed something out about the secret chamber, and please forgive me if I did forget to mention this. Let's go back down there. Let me show you this because it's kind of important. Okay, and it's just a small clarification, but remember when Zeke here was trying to discover that secret room, and we had to roll a d20, right, to see if he could discover it. And here's that token again. And Jason pointed out, and I could have sworn I did this, and please forgive me if I did forget. Remember we were talking about these values here. And there's 14, that's the target number a hero has to hit. Hopefully it comes into focus. There we go. So 14, rolling a d20 and then adding a hero's wisdom to that. They successfully discover the secret room. I think I forgot to mention about this 3. But the 3 means that's as many attempts as they have. So they get kind of 3 tries to do that, and then it's undiscoverable. They just kind of give up, and it cannot be discovered again. And you use these red tokens. There's actually tracking tokens in the Avalon Adventure board game. So let's say that Zeke tried to discover it on his first attempt, and he failed. You're going to place one of those in that chamber. That's just as a reminder that there was one attempt made. And then, so on and so forth. So if there's ever basically 3 of those red tokens in this chamber, it's undiscoverable. You can't do anything with it. It's done. So then you can also place the locked token side in there, just as a reminder, and then clear out these red tokens. So that is done, off limits. So that's what I wanted to point out. Okay, let's go back on top. So now let's get into the monster phase. But of course, since this is our first turn, I have to go over a few things because I want to get you acclimated to the game and show you what you do in the monster phase. It's only actually a few steps, but I want to go in depth, as we lead up to spawning the monsters and having them traverse through the dungeon on the patrol route system. So let's start with the new addition to the game, which is the Minion movement speed track. So I will meet you over on the dungeon UI board. So this is the new Minion movement speed track. And just remember something before we go any further. This is just an option. You don't have to use this. I'm always working on creating new types of systems and AI for the monsters and creatures in Dungeon Crusade and a few other games, smaller games I'm working on that's based in the land of Avalon. So this is just an option, but before actually we discuss this, let's take a look at a monster card and let me show you their movement. So let's look at a minion here. This is a Blackwood Prowler. And as of right now, all the monsters and creatures who are minions use a 1d6, and then they add their base movement to the result. So just like the heroes. So notice right here, when the Black Prowler moves, it's going to roll 1d6 and then add that result to +5. So this can get around pretty fast. That's how you generate movement for the minion's turn. And you can use this system, and this is the original way, and it's perfect. So I just wanted to explain this to you. So let's shoot back over to the Minion movement speed track, and this will all make sense now that, when I explain this to you. Okay, so if you're going to use the Minion movement speed track, this is the first thing you're going to do at the top of the monster phase. So you're going to come over here and notice that there's these different entries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're tied to a die. So what you can do is, there's two ways you can use this. One way is a universal roll. So for example, if we rolled at the top of the monster phase, and 5, so consulting 5, that's a D10, meaning is since it's going to be universal, all minions for the forthcoming turn are going to use a D10 to generate their movement and add their base movement to the result. So you see, they're going to be able to go quite fast if that, if the result is 8, 9, or 10. So just remember, that's the first option, and you just decide how you want to do that. You could do it throughout the whole game, or you could just do it every other turn. And this is the second way to use it. When it's a minion's turn, you can use this chart for each minion. So let's say the Blackwood Prowler was up first. We would come over here to the chart, roll 1. Okay, so that is what, a D3. So the Blackwood Prowler, kind of thinking of an AI, it's not going to move that fast this turn. It's just going to be very slow and maybe just creep through the hallways. Where, say it was a 6, it's going to be very fast. It's going to use a D12 to generate its movement. So those are the two ways you can use this, kind of a universal roll where all minions are going to use this for the forthcoming monster phase, or you could have each one, roll on this chart. So it really gives a variety of how fast the minions will move. And then, you could roll with this for, one method for a whole game, or mix and match it up. So that's the first thing you're going to consult if you're going to use the new Minion movement speed track. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. And actually, I just thought of this before we move away. So really, that gives you 3 options how to use the minions. So the first option is the original way. Just use what's printed on their card. The second option is, like we said, roll at the top of the monster phase, just roll the D6, and it's universal. All minions will use that. Or the third option is roll in this chart on each of the minions' turn. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. And the next thing you will do is consult the minion population track. So notice we have it set for our scenario at 5 minions. Whoop, that was on 5. It moved up to 6. But we have it set at 5. And please know, you can set this whatever you like. The more higher values, that's for playing Mega Dungeon Crusade with 10, 11, or 12 heroes. And yes, I'm going to be actually doing a playthrough of Mega Dungeon Crusade and doing some special quests for that. That's coming. But for our scenario that we're playing, I just set this at 5. Feel free to set this at whatever you like for your game. So we're going to have to spawn 5 minions into our dungeon, right? So consulting our chart and looking at our dungeon right over here, panning over it, you can see we have no minions in the dungeon at all. So it's time now that they are going to spawn in the monster phase. Let me show you how to spawn minions in. And since we are working on quests for quest table 1, we're of course going to spawn level 1 minions into the dungeon. And you can probably guess, when the heroes go to work on after Celebration Day, they're going to go back in the dungeon to complete their level 2 quests. You're going to spawn in level 2 minions. There's the final Celebration Day right here. And then they go back to the dungeon for the quest on quest table 3. And you guessed it, level 3 minions will spawn. But for right now, let's spawn in our level 1 minions into the dungeon. Okay, and here we have the level 1 minion deck. We're going to draw from the top, and we're going to spawn, a Wraith. And remember, this is an elite, so it has a special ability, Shadow Step. But I want to point something out here about these crystals. Let me get the Wraiths and show you this with this card so it'll make sense. Okay, and here are our Wraiths right here. So just know that all minions, there's 3 in the group. That's with all the minions. So there's actually 30 minions in Dungeon Crusade. But notice the small crystals up here. There's going to be 2 other Wraith cards in the minion deck that's going to have a blue and red crystal that matches their colored base. So that's just a good way to, of course, keep track of their health and keep track of them in the dungeon. So this green Wraith, according to its base, will be spawning into the dungeon. Okay, notice here this kind of bubble thing with the skulls. This is what's known as a monster spawn point. These are how the minions will spawn into the dungeon, and there are 8 of them around the dungeon. I just wanted to pull the camera back a little bit. So right here in the Chamber of Kings South, that's where the 1 was. So the 8 of them are almost like a clock going around the dungeon, so you can easily find them. So how do you spawn minions into the dungeon? It's very simple, guys. You're going to take a D8 and you're just going to roll it. The result is where the minion will spawn into the dungeon. So you can see, just this is another thing in Dungeon Crusade that's always random. You'll never know where the minions will show up. So let's get down in the dungeon at more closer level. Let's roll this and let's see where our green Wraith will spawn. Okay, and I think we're just going to try to roll this die right here in the Ogre's Lair West. So the result is, okay, that is a 6. And I believe that's up at the Chapel of Light North. So let me just move you up here so you can see. So like right there was 8. Over here in the Well of Eternity quadrant, that's a 7. And right over here, if I can set the camera down. So right here is 6. So I'm going to take our green Wraith and spawn it right here. Now, let's say that the next minion spawns and that would come up 6 again. You simply place it at the 12 o'clock position. And if another one would spawn, you would just go clockwise and continue in that fashion, if that would come up again. Okay, let's just go over that again quickly. Also, we're going to be talking about the monster area. And all that is like where you're going to place the monsters to refer to during the monster phase. So I'm just going to start my monster area right here. And then you place as they're spawned, you just put them, left to right. And if you run out of space, you just go beneath it. So let's spawn another minion in. And this is a Skeletal grunt. And this is an elite. Just so you know, red and green crystals represent elites, and blue are the normal version where you'll see the origin story I wrote for them. So let's just go over there real quick again, and let's spawn our Skeletal grunt in. Okay, and I have our red Skeletal grunt here. Freddy Lopez did the art on that. I said, give me an awesome skeleton warrior, and look at that. Awesome. Okay, let's spawn this guy in. 7. Well, actually, it's right here. You're just talking about that. So right here in the Well of Eternity. So he'll go there. Let's go over another one real quick. I hope you like going through this with me so you can get more acclimated and learn the game. So again, we're going to put this in our monster area. We're going to draw the next minion. And this is an Orc Archer. Notice the silver star, normal version, and there's the origin story. So let's go spawn the Orc Archer in. And I have our Orc Archer right here. Roll. 2. Okay, and actually that one is, there was 1, and it's right here in the Tomb of St. Viticus. So our Orc Archer spawned in at spawn point 2 in the Tomb of St. Viticus. So let's just spawn the other 2. And again, I'm going to place this in our monster area. We'll draw. And it's our Blackwood Prowler friend. I can't remember, was that a green one or red one we had before? But again, this is an elite, nasty special ability, Blood Moon Amulet. So let me get the miniature and we'll spawn our Blackwood Prowler. Okay, and we have our Blackwood Prowler. I want to give you a quick funny story. When I came up with this Blackwood Prowler, it's part of Castle Blackwood, its origins, and of course the awesome Freddy Lopez put it together. And I said, please make sure you can see the Blood Moon amulet. It's super important. So he made sure that amulet was huge. Put the base back on. Thought you'd enjoy hearing that. So let's spawn this guy in. One, actually, it's right here. We were just in this. So Chamber of Kings South. All right. And let's go spawn our last one, which will be 5 minions in the dungeon. Okay, I'm going to place our Blackwood Prowler in our monster area, and our 5th and final minion that will be populated in the dungeon is a Shadow Dweller, and this is an elite. I'm going to say something before we spawn this in, when we get back over there in Ogre's Lair. So let's head over there. And here is our Shadow Dweller miniature. And what I was going to say was that this has a very nasty ability called webbed, and you get these web tokens, and you don't want to get your hero webbed, and it's before you combat one of these elite ones. So these are nasty minions. So let's roll the d8 and see where this Shadow Dweller is going to spawn. And 5. So 5 is, I believe, in the Halls of the Dead. Here, where is it at? There's 4, and 5 is right there by the blue light. I gotta move those blue lights back a bit. So we'll get him in here first. So, okay, all our minions are spawned. Our dungeon's populated. Let's move on to the next step. And I just wanted to show you, we're gonna place our Shadow Dweller in our monster area. So you can see, this is how they're going to activate in this order. And before the minions activate, we have to discuss one of the coolest features in the game, and that is the patrol route system. I think you're really going to enjoy this. And what this is a system I created that gives the minions and guardians a sort of an AI where they have unpredictable movement patterns. You never have to think, guys, where these guys are going to move. They think for themselves. And it provides almost like a living dungeon experience. Let's go over a few things about the patrol route system. Okay, and we're back here in the Ogre's Lair West, so I can point this out. So notice these routes here. They're actually little monster footprints. But we have an orange one, a blue one, a purple one, and green one. And of course, it's connected to this monster spawn point. But also, if you point these out, you're also going to see these skull pile nodes. Notice this pile of skulls right here. So these patrol routes are networked throughout all of the quadrants in the dungeon. And I assure you, these minions go all over this dungeon. That's kind of in a nutshell what the patrol route system is. Also want to point out, actually, I took a look at this. You're going to notice that, like right here on this one, notice there's a green footprint on the purple. So when I show you these patrol route dice, if green would ever come up and there's a minion on this and green would come up, you would simply just follow that purple patrol route. And that's all that means. But I caught that and I wanted to say that. So let's go back over here. And so let me show you. These are the patrol route dice. Now, a lot of you know that there's 2 add-ons. This is the footprint version right here, and these work exactly the same. And then this is my classic one that I originally designed for the game, and they work exactly the same. This is a prototype, so the skulls are going to be a little bit lighter, and so these are a little bit dark, but I worked with a company to print this out. So just know this is a prototype, not final. It's going to be brighter. So on a minion's turn, along with its movement die, they're going to roll a patrol route die. So let me go a little bit further with you and move the camera. And we are going to borrow our very friendly elite skeletal grunt for this demo. We're going to say that he spawned in on 8, all right? Let's say that it was its turn to move. So what we're going to do is, and we're just going to go with what's printed on its card. So we can see, like I said, there's the roll of a d6 plus 2. So that's telling us the skeletal grunt is going to roll a d6, and the result will be added to his base movement of plus 2. Okay, so let's do that. I have the d6, and I have the patrol route die. So let's roll these. That's big movement. Okay, so 6 and 2, of course, is 8, and purple came up. So kind of think of this almost as its brain, its little brain in its head. I've said that before. So this is telling us the skeletal grunt wants to move on the purple patrol route 8 spaces. Notice the patrol route is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that would end its movement. And what you can do is I just kind of face them in the way that they're looking. And that's as a reminder of what, which way they're going. If he was going this way, you point him this way. If he was going up, you'd point him up. Whatever way he's facing, that's a good way to think of it. But you know what? I want to point something out since we're right here. And we're going to discuss it later. And I think right now would be the best time to do it. Line of sight in the game. Minions have a line of sight of 4. Okay? And I had it on my notes to talk about this, but let's just talk about this now. Minions enter the dungeon as vagrant minions, meaning they're just walking aimlessly, randomly finding ways through the corridors and hallways of the dungeon. However, a minion has a chance to convert into a raiding minion. If it ever converts into a raiding minion, you're going to place this token on its card. If it ever does convert into a raiding minion, you're going to notice these bloody arrows. See, like right here? And there's a few other ones with values on it. We'll get onto that later on in the game. But just know that these bloody arrows are also all over the dungeon. If a minion ever converts into a raiding minion, it will follow these red arrows out of the dungeon into the village and raid the village. Thus, the terror track will go up by 1. If the token ever gets to defeated, your heroes, right there's defeated, your heroes have lost the scenario. Another way that this terror track will go up, since we're right here, if a hero ever perishes, if a hero dies, the villagers don't like that. The terror level will also go up. So if a hero ever is killed, you're going to raise this up by 1. Let's go back over there to our minion in the dungeon. But I wanted to bring that up because of Zeke was right here and talk about line of sight. And I had it actually later scripted, but since this came up, this is a perfect time to discuss it. So remember, it was moving on the purple patrol route. Well, notice something when we talked about the line of sight being 4 spaces away. 1, 2, 3. That's 4 spaces away from Zeke, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4. Anytime a minion sees a hero, it will convert from a vagrant minion into a raiding minion. It will follow the bloody arrows out of the dungeon to raid the village. So again, it had 8 movement. So 1, 2, 3 converts into a raiding minion. It's going to continue its movement. 4, 5, 6. We're not going to get into this now, but minions have something called hit and run tactics. Basically, if it comes adjacent to a hero, it's going to hit that hero, hopefully trying to put damage on it, and if it is not killed, it will continue its movement on its way out of the dungeon. So hit and run tactics. It hits the hero. If it has movement remaining, it will continue out of the dungeon. So as you can see, if too many minions turn into raiding minions and raid the village, you could lose the game. So I just wanted to point that out, and hopefully I'm glad that Zeke was there so we could chat about that. So you'll learn that about the game. Well, let's go back. Let's say that Zeke wasn't here. Let's say he was inside the chamber, and our skeletal grunt had 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so on its next movement, when his turn comes around again, I keep saying it's an it. You won't roll the patrol route die because it's on a patrol route. So what you're going to do is roll for its movement. Okay, 4, and remember, base movement of 2 is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on to that 2 movement. it's going to roll the patrol route die. So think this thing is like spinning around in its head. Where am I going to move to next in the dungeon? Okay, green. So it's telling us it's going to move on the green patrol route. It has 2 movement remaining. 1, 2. Point it in that direction as a reminder. Guys, it's a simple system, but it's really awesome. If you've talked to other players, they really do get around the dungeon really good. And that's the patrol route system. But we have to go over something that's not used in the Solo Crusader mode, and that's the raid die chart. And since I already explained raiding to you, this is the last thing. So let's head over to the raid chart. Okay, and since we're in the monster phase, I definitely want to go over the raid difficulty chart. Now, please note, in the Solo Crusader mode, this is kind of off by default. Picture a little switch, it's off. You don't use it. However, once you get acclimated to this, feel free to turn on the raid difficulty for even more of a challenge. But by default, it's off. So let me explain to you what this is exactly. Since you already know what I showed you about raiding minions, remember when we rolled the patrol route die and its movement die? You're also going to roll the raid die. And this is another thing that you can set in your scenario page with the options. There's an entry for this. So as you can see, there's novice, easy, normal, hard, expert, and master. And simply it's this. I recommend everyone play on novice starting out. So when you roll that patrol route die and the movement die, you're also going to roll the raid die. And quite simply, if the highest result is rolled on that particular die, so of course this would be a 20, that minion has stopped being a vagrant minion. Picture this thing was, like I said, spinning around in its head. I'm actually thinking of like a computer, like PC dungeon crawl game with this animated die spinning around. So if 20 comes up, it all of a sudden says, I'm raiding the village. You're going to put a raid token on its monster card, and of course follow the bloody arrows out to the village to raid the village. So that's really what the raid die is. So you're going to roll that with the movement die and your patrol route die at the start of a minion's turn. And there's a chance it could turn into a raiding minion, convert from a vagrant minion to a raiding minion. That's the simplest what that is. So as you get more acclimated to the game, I'm big on having different difficulties. You can try your hand at some of these other ones. Like, this is crazy, master difficulty. Picture this, if you're playing and you set the raid difficulty for a D4, that means on the result of a 4, minions are going to convert into a raiding minion. So there's a 25% chance that's going to happen. Now, this kind of, I'm going to clear these dice since I showed you that. This kind of works in conjunction with this track right here, the minion population. So if you want to have 10 minions spawn into the dungeon, consider that. If you have it on 4, that could be a very hectic game. And if you really want to try something insane, but this is more Mega Dungeon Crusade, playing with 12 heroes, which I'm going to do a playthrough of in the next few months, that's 16 minions. And then of course you can move this anywhere you want. So it's kind of like, picture you can adjust these things however, to your liking. So that's quite simply what the raid difficulty chart is. So get yourself acclimated with the Solo Crusader mode, and then maybe start it on 20 and see how you do. And I have another hidden option for you. So as you saw here, Master is you're going to be rolling a D4. So there's one actual hidden difficulty option, and that is Insane. And what Insane is, you're going to roll a D3. The game comes with a true D3. 6-sided, but there's 1, 2, 3 on each side, or on 2 sides. So for your raid die, you could use a D3. Of course, on the result of 3, it's going to convert into a raiding minion. Okay, and guess what? It is time to activate our 5 minions within the dungeon. But I hope you like going over that. And as you can see, it's not very complex at all. But the patrol route system really adds like that living dungeon experience to the game. Okay, so first up, let's go over to our Wraith over there in the Chapel of Light, and let's see where it is going to move.